Roger, you've been cleared. The investigation of the crash on the station
Oh.
proved that Loring and Mason
I think I have it
guilty.
working.
They're wanted for the crash and the deaths of Jardine and Bangs.
What? You mean?
Stammered Roger.
Yes, Loring and Mason did the whole thing,
Supplied Tom.
Look, Tom.
Pleaded Roger.
Give me 10 minutes. Don't fire for 10 minutes. I'm going to try an idea. If I'm not successful, then open up and blast us back to Mars.
Roger, wait!
Shouted
Alright,
Tom.
try that
What's
one
going
again.
on? What are you doing on that ship?
I can't talk now.
Answered
Or is that?
Roger.
Loring and Mason are on the ship with me. Remember,
Oh,
10
right.
minutes. If I don't contact you, then open fire.
End of chapter 12.
Share. Hang on. Hang on, I got the
Chapter
right thing
13
now.
Of Danger in Deep Space. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public
Sorry
domain.
about the image.
For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Danger in Deep Space by Kerry Rockwell. Narrated by Sam Holloway. Chapter 13. Roger flipped off the teleceiver, stared at the darkened screen, and began estimating the chances of success for a plan he had in mind. Deciding that, regardless of what happened, he had to take over the ship. He got up and turned toward the hatch and the gun locker. He stopped cold. Loring stood framed in the doorway, a Paralo ray gun in each hand.
Just stand right where you are, Space Boy.
Snapped Loring.
You want 10 minutes, huh? 10 minutes for
Okay,
what?
so you can
I
see
thought
my
there was
stream.
something funny going on when we missed the Polaris with that bomb.
You knew all along that I didn't have anything to do with that crash back on the station, didn't you?
Shouted Roger. His eyes blazed angrily.
Yeah, so what?
Growled Loring.
Hey, Mason,
He yelled over his shoulder.
get up here now.
Give me 1 second, I'll be right back.
What are you going to do?
Asked Roger.
You're still valuable to us, Manning.
Said Loring with a crooked grin.
You're going to ensure our getting what we came after.
Mason stepped through the door.
Yeah, Loring.
Loring quickly told him of Roger's attempt to work with Connell.
Take our Space Boy down below and lock him in a storage compartment.
He handed over one of the Paralo ray guns, and Mason shoved the muzzle into Roger's stomach.
Get moving, Manning.
Snarled.
I'd like nothing better than to let you have it right now.
Roger smiled, knowing Mason still harboured a grudge for the beating he had taken earlier on the trip.
When you have him locked up, get back on the control deck.
Said Loring.
We're going to do some old-fashioned bargaining with Blastoff Connell.
Bargaining, exclaimed Roger.
Yeah, one slightly used space cadet for what we came after. The proper satellite.
Connell won't bargain.
Said Roger.
Not for me, not for anything. You don't know him.
I know this, Manning.
Said Loring.
I'm going to get on the teleceiver and tell Connell that if he doesn't blast away from here right now, you're a dead space cadet.
Roger put his head toward the door.
All right, take him
Okay,
away.
I'm back.
You need to stand by on the power deck. In case
Can you
Connell
also
dies,
hear the audio
we'll
book
have
I
to
have
make a
going?
run for it.
Right, said Mason, as he shoved the Paralo ray gun deeper into Roger's stomach.
Move, Manning.
Roger climbed down the ladder and through the long passageway. of the
Or is
space
it
deck,
just video?
with Shinny on the way down.
What's going on here?
Demanded Shinny, seeing Mason with the Paralo ray gun.
We missed with the bomb,
Said Mason.
and Connell Ray's ship. He's ready to blast us if we don't surrender right away. Loring's trying to make a deal with him.
What kind of a deal?
Asked Shinny.
Hotshot Manning for the satellite.
He hasn't told you everything, Mr. Shinney.
Said Roger in his casual drawl.
They're the ones who caused the crash of the Annie Jones and the deaths of Jardine and Bangs. They framed me.
Then
Mused Shinny.
you're cleared.
Yeah,
Growled Mason.
he's cleared. Cleared for a long swim in space if Connell doesn't do what Loring tells him. Get in there.
Mason shoved Roger into the cramped storage compartment. He locked the door and turned to Shinny.
Loring wants you to stand by the power deck in case Connell won't play ball. We might have to make
you
a run
looking?
for it.
Yeah.
Said Shinny.
I'll stand by the power deck.
Mason turned and walked away. Shinny followed him, a curious gleam in his eyes. Up on the control deck, Loring was twisting the dials in front of the teleceiver screen.
Oh, I forgot there's a
Space Devil to
delay.
Polaris. Space Devil to Polaris. Come in, Polaris.
He twisted another dial and watched the darkened screen anxiously. After a moment, the screen blurred, and Tom's face gradually came into sharp focus.
Laura,
Gasped Tom.
where's Roger?
Never mind him, you punk.
Snarled Loring.
Tell that fat-headed Connell I want to talk to him. Make it fast.
Tom's face disappeared, to be replaced by the raging features of Major Connell.
You murdering space rats! giving you 2 minutes to surrender. And by the craters of Luna, you've only got 30 seconds left.
It'll only take 10 seconds to
What
tell
do you
you.
see?
If you don't get out of here, Cadet Manning gets blasted.
What?
roared Connell.
That's right.
Snarled Lauren.
You're the one that's got 30 seconds to get out of here, or Manning takes a swim in space.
Who are you?
Connell's face was twisted with rage.
You can't threaten me.
I ain't threatening you.
Said Lauren.
I'm telling you. If you don't get started, you'll never see Manning again. And if you do, you won't recognize him. Now make up your mind, Connell.
The Solar Guard officer hesitated.
Why is it
Give me 2 minutes,
stuck on
and
there?
I'll call you back. 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Repeated Lauren.
And if I don't hear from you by then, or if you try any funny stuff, Manning gets it.
Aboard the Polaris, the screen darkened, and Connell, his fists clenched, turned to Tom.
We're helpless, Tom.
Said softly.
Now that we have proof of Roger's innocence, I have to do everything in my power to save him.
Tom didn't say anything. Suddenly Connell smashed one huge fist into another.
But by the blessed rings of Saturn, when I do get my hands on that lowering, I'll...
He broke off suddenly and turned back to the teleceiver.
I'm going to do what he wants, Tom. Roger's life is worth a dozen like Loring, and we'll have to take a chance that Loring will keep his word. After all,
Continued the big officer softly.
our mission is complete. We've tested the transmitter and found it to be more than we expected. No real reason why we should stay around here any longer.
Yes, sir.
Is it still showing?
Sir, I...
Connell waved in silence with his hand.
You don't need to say anything, Tom. It's just one of those things. Still, I can't help wondering what they came out here for.
He turned to the dials on the teleceiver and began twisting them.
I'll call him. And you stand by to blast out of here.
Nicholas Shinney sat on the power deck and listened to Loring issue orders over the intercom.
I don't know if Connell will go for it or not.
Said Loring.
But just in case he doesn't, we've got to get out of here fast. You've got that, Jimmy?
Answered Shinney.
I got it.
Mason,
Yelled Loring.
you take over on the radar bridge.
Already up here.
Said Mason.
Well, be sure we've got a clear trajectory out. Better take us into the sun, Alpha Centauri. That way, maybe they'll miss us on their radar. The sun will show all sorts of blips on their screen.
Okay.
Said Mason.
Do you think he'll go for it?
I don't know.
Answered Loring.
But if he doesn't, it's going to be space dust for Manning.
Shinney got up and walked around the deserted power deck. His legs felt weak. The plan he had made was a desperate one. Over and over he checked the operation in his mind. It would have to be quick, short and sudden. That was the only thing that would ensure success.
Yes, sir. If we can surprise him, we can get away with it.
He dug out a piece of chewing tobacco, took a bite, eyed the remaining piece, and then shoved the whole thing in his mouth. His cheek bulged. He went to the intercom and flipped it on.
Hey, Lauren. I've got to check the timer on number 3 rocket. She's not acting just right. It'll take me about a minute.
Okay,
And Lawrence reply.
but make it snappy.
The timers were to the left of the control board, but Shinney turned to the right, and the ladder leading to the lower deck. He eased the hatch
hate
open,
this.
glanced around, and then climbed down quickly. He stopped at a locker, opened the doors quietly, and took out 2 Paralo ray guns and 2 rifles. Then, closing the doors, he made his way to the opposite side of the ship.
Hey, Manning,
He whispered through the closed storeroom hatch.
can you hear me?
Who is it?
Asked Roger,
Me, Shimmy.
hissed the wizened spaceman. He opened the hatch and Roger quickly stepped out.
What's the idea?
Gasped Roger when Shinney shoved a rifle and pistol into his hands.
I ain't got time to explain now.
Said Shinney.
We've got to hurry if we're going to take over this tub.
Roger's eyes glowed.
You mean...
Never mind what I mean.
Said Shinney.
Just listen. Loring's on the control deck, and Mason's on the radar bridge. Loring's just talked to Connell. He's trying to make him blast out of here. If Connell doesn't, Loring's going to dump you in space.
Yeah, I know. That murdering space trawler.
Snarled
Are you there?
Roger, gripped the rifle tightly.
I'll blast him.
Now wait a minute.
Hissed Shinney.
You go up and get Loring, see? Make it look like you got out by yourself. If you can handle it, okay. I'll stay in back, and if anything goes wrong, I'll back you up.
Fine.
Said Roger. Patted the spaceman on the back and smiled.
Don't worry, Mr. Shinney. Nothing will go wrong.
Watch your step. That Loring is a smart cookie.
Roger turned into the passageway and made his way silently to the control deck hatch. He peered around the edge of the hatch and saw Loring sitting
Oh,
atop the
crap.
teleceiver screen, his back
Was in a
toward
different-
Roger. The cadet
I
quickly
thought we were
stepped into
private
the control
messaging.
booth, levelled the rifle, and said quietly.
Alright, Lauren. Keep your hands in view.
Loring spun around and stared open-mouthed at Roger.
Man,
Yeah, me.
Said Roger.
Call Mason and tell him to come down here on the double. But one wrong move, Lauren, and I'll give you a quick freeze with this ray
Okay,
gun.
so you're good now?
Moving slowly, Loring turned to the intercom and flipped the switch.
hey Mason. Come
That was
down
a minute
here with me,
ago,
will
so
ya?
yeah.
What do you want?
Growled Mason.
I've got to figure out this course.
Roger stepped close to Loring, raising the gun. Loring licked his lips and turned back to the intercom.
Don't give me any back talk. I said get down here.
Suddenly, the teleceiver came to life.
Polaris to Space Devil. Come in, Loring.
Oh,
This is
come on,
Major
don't
Connell on
do
the
this to
Polaris
me.
calling Loring on the Space Devil.
The suddenness of the voice startled Roger, and for a split second he
Oh,
took
that's
his
right.
eyes off Loring. In that instant, Loring leaped for the boy, grabbing at the rifle. The quickness of his lunge caught Roger off guard, and he was thrown back against the bulkhead, but he held on to the rifle as Loring tried to twist it out of his grasp.
What the?
Cried Mason from the ladder leading to the radar bridge. When he saw Roger and Loring struggling, he grabbed for the Paralo ray gun at his side. Just at that moment, Shinny stepped through the hatch and fired his rifle. Mason was frozen into a rigid statue, unable to move.
Alright, Loring.
Yelled Shinny.
Step back or I'll blast you like I did Mason.
Roger wrenched the rifle out of Loring's grasp and stepped back.
Good work, Mr. Shilling.
He said to the little spaceman.
You sure figured it right.
Attention, attention. This is Connell on the Polaris. Come in, Loring.
Shinny looked over at Roger and winked.
Better answer it while I get this joker locked up.
He motioned to Loring, who stood backed up against the bulkhead, his hands high over his head.
You dirty double-crossing space rat.
He snarled at Shinny.
Nah, none of that.
Said Shinny, levelling the rifle.
You get too noisy, I'll freeze you like I did Mason to keep the trap shut.
Loring cast a sidelong glance at Mason, who stood as if carved out of marble. The effects of the ray blast were devastating, having paralysed his entire nervous system. While the victim was still able to breathe and his heartbeat remained normal, he was unable to move so much as an eyelid. The gun was developed after all lethal weapons had been outlawed by the Solar Alliance. Though any victim could be released from its paralysing effect by a neutralising charge from the same gun, while under its power the victim was reduced to a state of mild hysteria. He was able to hear, see and think, but not to act. When released, it was not unusual to see a man crumple to the floor from exhaustion. Loring marched meekly in front of Shinny to the storage room that had held Roger. The cadet spaceman remained on the control deck. He twisted the dials of the teleceiver and spoke into the mic.
Space Devil
Okay.
to Major Connell. Come in. This is Manning on the Space Devil calling Major Connell.
Manning!
Shouted Connell.
I thought you were a prisoner.
It is nothing, Skipper.
Said Roger blandly.
I just took over the ship. With a little help, of course.
A little help?
Asked Connell.
From whom?
Roger then gave the officer a complete review of what had happened to it since leaving the space station, finishing with Shinny's aid in his escape.
Why would he want to help you?
Right, alright.
I don't know, sir.
So you ready for the tour?
Well, never mind.
Said Connell.
I suppose you two can handle that ship all right between you. Land on Tara as soon as you can. I'll get the details there.
Aye, aye, sir.
Replied
Alright.
Roger. Then, just before breaking
Welcome
contact,
to the
he
Hydraulic
opened the
Press
door.
channel,
That's
and
great.
here
See you in a few
we
minutes.
go.
The teleceiver screen darkened, Shinny reappeared. He had released Mason from the
There's
effects of the
gonna
ray
be a
charge.
stone
Both
here.
Mason
You gotta
and Loring
pick
were
out.
safe in the storage room. He walked
then you
over
crawl
slapped
through.
Roger on the back.
Or crouch
It
through.
looks like we did it, sonny boy.
Said. Roger turned to look at the wizened spaceman, who was still chewing on the plug of tobacco.
What made you do this for me, Mr. Shinny?
Asked Roger quietly.
Tell you a little secret.
Said Shinny, with a merry twinkle in his eyes.
I was in the Solar Guard for 20 years. Enlisted man. Got into an accident and hurt my leg, but it wasn't in the line of duty, so I was tossed out without a pension. Ever since then I've been kind of bitter, you might say. And strangely enough, it was Major Connell who kicked me out.
But you...
Gasped Roger.
Let's just say
Very
Said
little
Shinny
issue
with a
there.
smile.
that once you're a Solar Guardsman, you're always a Guardsman. Now, how about getting this wagon down to Tara?
Yeah, sure.
said Roger absently, his eyes trailing after the small limping figure.
Here's the master
Once a
hand
solar
that
guardsman,
comes and
always
gets you.
guardsman, he thought. Smiling, he turned to the control board. He felt the same way. He was a guardsman, and it was good to be back home. End of chapter 13. Chapter 14 of Danger in Deep Space. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Danger in Deep Space by Kerry Rockwell. Narrated by Sam Holloway. Chapter 14. Major Connell paced nervously in front of the group of spacemen. Tom, Roger, Astro, Alfie, and Mr. Shinny were lounging around the small clearing between
Bunnies
the
in
Polaris
cages.
and the Space Devil. A piece of thin space cloth had been stretched between the two ships to shield the men from the blazing sun. Connell stopped in front of Roger and Shinny.
And you say the satellite is 3/4 solid copper?
Asked Connell.
Yes, sir.
Replied Roger.
At least that's what Loring and Mason told us.
Where is it?
Asked Connell.
I mean, where
The
exactly?
center of the Triforce you have to step on.
Replied Roger.
I'd say she
'Cause
was
you
about
can't
300,000
play,
miles
an
outside
ocarina
Tara
to-
in perfect orbit.
You know,
By the blessed
trigger a
rings
puzzle.
of Saturn!
Exclaimed Connell.
So when you step in the center here, there's a pressure
The
plate
whole solar alliance
that will
needs to
turn
keep desperate.
all 4 of these
What
torches
you
on.
say is true. That's enough to last for 150 years.
And then they will stay on for 5 minutes,
Asked Tom.
I mean, when they took
which
their
allows
Flight
you
flight
to
on their
go-
first trip out here.
Didn't
come back to the
suspect
center
a thing,
here,
Tom.
Replied Connell.
I thought
and
they'd
then you
knocked
can
their
swipe a
little
green
space
key
rockets
card,
and homemade rocket juice and just went
get
on
into
in
this
there.
door,
Imagine
and
the
it's this room.
nerve of those two, wanting to corner the market with the largest deposit of copper ever found.
and then you
How do
can
plan to
leave.
Get it back, Major.
Asked Shinny.
I don't know, Shinny.
Mr.
Um,
Shinny.
Snapped
Within the same time frame, you can run across over to this room,
Still the hothead rocket buster, eh?
Asked Connell.
swipe another green key card.
It was
There's
the
only
same thing
like
that
4
got
swipes,
kicked
I
out of
think.
the Solar Guard 20 years ago.
Come in here,
And you know it.
Snapped Shinny.
and it's the room that's supposed to have like a invisible floor.
That helped.
Said Connell.
But I just kept the right side visible. But this one is kind of a troll. I put an elite crate up there,
I ain't in no solar guard now. And when
At
you
the
tell
top.
me it's Mr. Shinny,
but you fall through this flooring down to spike traps.
you can't do a thing to me.
Barked Shinny.
Prospecting is prospecting, whether it's in the asteroid belt or out here on Tara.
Is that too evil?
Unable to hold back any longer, the 4 space cadets suddenly roared with laughter at the sight of the 2 old space foes jawing at each other. Actually, Connell and Shinny were
Just a
glad to see
tad.
each other, and when they saw
Alright,
the boys
so
doubled up with laughter, they couldn't help
In the
laughing
editor,
also.
I can go into like first person mode. You know, I can jump.
He asked.
Yes, sir.
Roger grinned.
You fall short.
All right then,
Said Connell finally.
let's go take a look at it. I still won't believe it until I see it.
You can't
It was designed that way.
Snorted Shinny, climbing into the Polaris.
So it's got this. Even put like the little pictures on the wall.
Connell joined Roger and Alfie on the radar deck. The 2 cadets bent
Um,
over the radar scanner.
Pick her up yet?
Asked Connell.
Oh,
There she is.
You
right
remember-
there, sir.
Said Roger.
so I'm guessing you're a
Placing
fan
the
of this
search
game,
for
right?
white blip on the scanner.
Legend of
The
Zelda.
microscope shows pretty rugged country. I think we'd better take a look on the opposite side.
Alright.
Maybe we can find
So you
a
know
better
this
place to touch down.
Pretty much front and back, right?
Replied Connell.
Do what you think best. Tell Tom to land as soon as possible.
Aye,
Alright.
sir.
Replied
So,
Roger.
remember after you drain the
Leaving
water
Alfie on watch at the scanner,
at the very
Roger hurried
entrance,
down the ladder to the
there's this
control
area.
deck.
You come
Tom
down,
was seated in front
you can
of the
climb up
black
this
board.
rock wall to get
Tom,
out.
called Roger, walking up behind his unit mate.
Even a
We're
little
going
drain
take
to
a
make
look at this
sense.
baby on the other side. See if we can't
You have
find
to
a better
pick
place
out
to touch down.
Another
Find
stone
out to
rock,
pick up the surface of the satellite on the
and then you
teleceiver.
crawl
As soon as
through
we
the
get
tunnel.
close enough.
Okay, Roger.
Said Tom.
Where are you going?
Down to
and
the
then
bottom
there's
of
a
the
Skulltula that's supposed
I
to
want
drop
see their
down,
faces when I tell them they finally are getting
but
where they want
it just
to
stays
go.
there, doesn't
But
do
in
anything.
slightly different circumstances.
Climb up,
Tom laughed.
and this is where you go fight the dead hand after you stepped on the switch for the Triforce. It'll activate this blue card for a few minutes.
Should be soon, Astro.
You come in and there's
Better
this.
stand by for maneuvering.
right.
replied Astro. Tom turned his full attention to the control board and the teleceiver screen above his head. He was happier than he had
Ignore
ever
the
been in
blue
his life.
things, just,
The report sent back
you
to
won't see
Space
that
Academy
in-game.
by Major Connell had been answered with a commendation to both Roger and Shinny for capturing Lieutenant and Mason. With Roger back in the unit, Tom was at peace. Even Alfie was overjoyed at seeing Roger back aboard the Polaris. And Tom had noticed that Major Connell was beginning to call them by their first names.
Radar deck to
Go in,
control
loot,
Said Alfie.
leave the same
deck.
way.
Careful observations, Tom. The surface on the
Climb
far
up and
side of the
out.
satellite is more suitable for a
Um,
touchdown. I would suggest you observe the
You
planet
remember
yourself
with the
an
wooden
active
X,
scope and
how there
dry
was a
rapid
drop
vision.
down with the invisible floor?
Replied Tom. He switched the teleceiver screen onto the more powerful magnoscope and studied the surface of the small celestial body. He saw a deep valley with a flat, hard surface set between two tall cliffs. It would be a tricky spot for a landing, but it looked like the best place available. Tom snapped open the intercom.
Attention, attention. Stand by for touchdown. Power deck stand by for deceleration. Radar bridge stand by for range and altitude checks.
Sharply, crisply, Tom's orders crackled through the ship. Working together with the ease and
How do you like that?
thoroughness of men well acquainted with their jobs, Astro and Shinny on the power deck, Roger and Alfie on the radar bridge, and Tom on the control deck,
Skulls
handling
on the
delicate
stands. You mean
maneuvering,
the thing with the red
trying
light?
to bring the great ship to a safe landing on the dry valley floor of the satellite.
Touchdown.
It's made out of
Securing the ship. 2 minutes
bone
later, the
knives,
entire crew faced Major
bone
Connell's
clubs, and
We
human
also went to
skulls.
different parts of the satellite
And then a
did
light
lots of
effect.
tests.
announced Connell.
Prepare off, two jet boats, Astro and Roger, Alfie and Mr. Shinny, Tom and myself. This is
But
a
like the
simple
whole
test.
bottom where the zombies are and stuff, it was too much to have it spread out like it normally does.
Simply pour a little of this liquid
I was getting into too many items.
on the ground. Wait about 5 minutes.
So I just kept it pretty small and just kept the green water pool.
He held up a 2-foot steel shaft, a quarter
I'll probably
inch in
make it to where
diameter,
the water
with a
hurts you
simple
if you
clock-based
touch it.
gauge with numbers from 1 to 1,000. The other end of the shaft was
I need to test that,
When you stick this into the
but
ground,
then you can
there'll be a reading on the meter.
kind of climb out. It's got a different structure. I have to use rust things. So you climb out up.
He held up the testing equipment
And
for
then
all
now
to
you're
see.
in just
He
the left side of
extended
the
since
thing.
once more. Then, giving each team a kit, he ordered them to the jet boats. Just before the crew of Earthmen left the Polaris,
This little thing
Connell
here,
gave them last-minute
in game,
instructions.
it's supposed to be a wall you can walk through. So I made it so you can walk through.
Don't forget to leave one man in the jet boat while the other is making the test. Keep your audio communicator in the jet boat on at all times. And be sure your belt communicator is always open.
Also right here is supposed to be a false wall that you can walk through, but I just did tunnels to make a little more sense out of it, especially with Rust players.
And the jet boats
Then you come in the
blasted out
center.
into the brilliant sunlight of Alpha Centauri, going in 3 different
Oh,
directions.
also in
Tom
this
piloted
jail
the
cell,
ship
there's a
over the
hole you
lights
can
of
fall
the
through, which
satellite,
takes you back down
circling
into
the
here.
larger peaks and swooping into the small valleys. Connell would indicate when it was time to stop, and Tom would set the craft down. While Connell made the tests, Tom would talk to the others over the audio communicators. The 3 small ships covered
I
the
think there's
satellite quickly
one
in
more
evenly divided
thing I need to show
sections,
you.
reporting
Oh,
their
actually 2
readings
more.
on the needle-like instrument
So go back
Connell,
out
who kept
to
recording
the left
reports on
hallway.
the pad at his knee. An hour later, the boats returned to the Polaris, and the Earthmen assembled in the control room. Connell, Tom, and Alfie were busy reducing the readings of tests into recognizable copper-ton estimates per square mile. Finally, Connell turned
Swipe a
around,
green card,
wiped his brow, and faced the others.
This is
and
one
then
of
you
the
come into this room,
greatest discoveries
the one that has the
since
coffins.
they learned how to blast off.
The big officer
And then I made
paused,
these
and then held up the
statues
results of the tests.
This satellite
out of bones.
is really 3/4 solid copper.
There was a loud mumble as everyone began talking at once.
What do you think of the
How are we going to
statue?
get it back home, sir?
asked Tom.
Wouldn't hauling it back in spaceships cost too much?
Yes, it would, Corbett.
Answered
I
Connell.
kind of threw it together
How we can lick that problem.
while talking with a friend while building this.
Snorted Shinny.
Unless you take the whole blasted
Alright, so
satellite
I got a button.
That's
You can
exactly
leave.
what I'm gonna do.
Answered Connell.
Out,
What?
down,
exclaimed
back
Roger,
up.
momentarily forgetting he was addressing a senior officer. How in blazes are you going to do that? Connell turned to the chart screen projector and switched it on. Immediately, an image of Earth and its
Even has
moon,
the
much farther
corner
away from the
here.
sun, was visible. Connell stepped to the screen and pointed to the moon.
Little effect you can see right here is I put walls at a 45-degree angle to give it like a tunnel effect.
This satellite is a captive of Tara, and Tara is a captive
Instead of being perfectly flat and square, boring.
The satellite is a peanut compared in size to the moon, being only about 15
I even put zombie hands
I'm not sure, but I think
coming out from the skull.
reaction energy out of the Space Devil's fuel supply to blast the satellite out of Tara's grip and send it back to our solar system in one piece.
You mean, sir,
Asked
It's the only way I could really get hands to kind of work.
satellite out of Tara's gravitational pull?
That's right, Tom.
See over
Using
here,
the same principle to clear gravity
this
that
is
we
the
use on
right side of
Polaris
the
or
tunnel
any spaceship.
coming in.
Enough power from the rockets will
Remember
blast
there's
the
like a
Polaris
fence
off
here
Tara.
with the light back there.
Power, you can blast this satellite
You
out
can
of
still go
Tara's
through the
grip
false
also.
wall, connects to the tunnels. This is the other prison cell.
Astro's eyes sponged. He looked at Connell blankly.
Over here,
Stammered.
what you have to do is pick out another rock, and then you can crouch through,
You're right,
come in.
Said Connell.
but there's one thing
Even has
you
another
forgot.
picture.
Copper
Some
of the
loot,
satellite
little barrels.
itself. That's gonna
Swipe the
make
green card,
power. The reaction fuel
and then
from
this
Space
room
Devil
where there's
is
supposed to be a
ceremonious
BMOS,
starter that triggers
the laser eye thing,
to make use of the copper as fuel.
Once again,
and it
Astro
has
gasped.
false floors that you can fall through. So right now,
He
jumping,
finished slowly. Connell
dead.
I know there isn't. I'm gonna contact Space
So,
Academy now
pew.
for permission to pitch the biggest ball in the history of man.
End of chapter 14.
But if you have enough meds, there's still a ladder up and out
Chapter 15.
if you fall in.
Deep space.
So you're not completely
This is a
screwed,
LibriVox recording.
but don't
All
fall
LibriVox
in.
recordings are in the public domain. For more information,
Come
or to
here,
volunteer,
push
please
a
visit
button,
LibriVox.org. Danger
come in, get
in
some
Space
extra
by
loot,
Larry Rockwell. Narrated
and then,
by
you know, just
Sam
leave the
Hall.
same way.
Chapter 15.
Well, I'll be a stargazing lunatic.
Exclaimed
That's
Roger a few minutes
pretty
I
later.
much it.
really think that you can blast a satellite out of its orbit.
Not only
Do you
that,
think it's
Danny,
close enough to the original?
I might be able to get it back to our sun faster than we could get back ourselves.
Not many people I know
That would be
know the
biggest
level that well.
project ever attempted by man, sir.
Said Tom.
You'd be
Like, if you
transporting
walked
an
in, you would know
entire
exactly
satellite
what it
from one
was.
star system to another.
Well, that's right, Corbett.
Said Connell.
I've just finished talking to Space Academy, and they've given me permission to do
Sweet.
anything
That's what I was going for.
necessary to accomplish just that. Now, pay close attention to me, all of you.
Yeah, you'd be like, hey, this is kind of familiar.
Tom, Roger, Astro, Alfie, and Mr. Shimmy gathered in a close circle around the Major on the control deck of the Polaris. He watched him as he drew some rough diagrams on a
This will be on the new map
Getting the satellite
next
back
week.
is the trickiest part of the whole operation. Astro, are you sure you made a correct estimate on the amount of reaction fuel in the Space Devil?
And it's going to be attached to the greenhouse monument.
All right, then. Listen,
said Tom.
I've given the satellite a name. From now on,
Give me a
call it
sec.
Junior.
Ow.
And this will be known as Junior's Pitch. I've explained why Junior is a captive satellite revolving around Tara, the same way our moon revolves around Earth. We have two problems. One is to blast it out of Tara's grip, and the other is to take advantage of Tara's orbital speed around its sun Alpha
Oh boy.
Centauri and Junior's orbital speed around Tara. We've got to combine the velocities of the orbits, so that when we do spring Junior loose, he'll gain in speed.
And how do we get the orbital speeds to help us, Major?
Asked Alfie. His glasses had slipped.
Oh, actually,
very
I already
low
have
his
it here.
nose.
If you give the Major a chance,
So this is
he'll tell you
going to be the
something.
entrance to it
Warned Roger. Alfie gave Roger a withering look and turned back to the Major.
at the greenhouse, which I also remade.
Locked on the end of a rope and then swung it around your head.
Asked Connell.
Sure, sort of like a
You
slingshot.
walk in,
Astro.
there's a switch for water, switch for lights, which will power these on.
go.
I get it.
cried Tom excitedly.
The gravity of
Even
Tara
did
is a rope
piping
holding
for the
Julia.
sprinklers,
Add
even though it's unnecessary.
Swing round.
And the reactant power of the space station placed in the right spot.
It grows all sorts of berries, mushrooms, pumpkins, corn, potatoes, and you can also use the planters in here and grow stuff.
Beams of the sun. Are you going to stop that blasted thing when you get it?
Yeah, this one looks better. It actually uses 500 less items. The first one that's on the server right now is completely overdeveloped. Way too many things.
That sounds pretty neat.
So I kept it pretty much the same, not changing too much on people. Doors, it's got a doorknob, which is actually just like a shipping hitch, you know, at the harbor. I changed up the barn. That's one big item instead of using like 50. Here. So that you can jump off the truck, get up to the top floor. I'll put something up here.
You're going to do all this because I know you can, and I'm going to see that you do.
Yeah, the greenhouse is going to be lit. So is the harbor.
The six of us working together are going to send a hunk of copper 15 miles in diameter.
I didn't want to create like a whole nother section of the map, like for a whole nother monument, so I was like, well, why don't I just merge the two? Something that's relatively small, and then have it pretty big once you look at it.
During the 3 days that their project had been underway, Tom, Roger,
Thank you.
Astro, Alfie and Mr. Shinny worked, as Major Connell promised, as they had never worked before. Late in the afternoon of the third day, Connell stepped through the hatch
You mean,
control deck where Tom was busy
like Kakariko Village, it has a windmill in the back.
seen the amount of thrust from each of the reactant power units. The power units were ticketed junior.
I thought about doing Kakariko Village with it, or the graveyard,
How are you making out with the ratios?
I finished them, sir.
Replied Tom, looking
but
at the major.
I just thought it'd be a little too much.
But I just can't seem to get a time for escaping the
Maybe in the
orbit on
future.
a true tangent.
You tried making an adjustment for the overall pull?
Right now I have the well done.
Tara and of Alpha Centauri on Junior.
He picked up the paper Tom had been working on and glanced over the figures.
Yes, sir.
Replied Tom.
But I still can't seem to make it come out right.
You'll get it, Tom.
Yeah, definitely I have something
But remember, time
in my mind to work with.
One day and about 20 hours left.
Connell's voice was friendly, more friendly than at any time Tom could remember. He smiled and taking
Let's
a fresh
see what
sheet of
else has
paper,
changed.
began the
Oh,
complicated calculations
the Waffle
of escape
House.
time all over again. Connell slipped out of the control room and went below to the power deck, where Astro and Mr. Shinny had been working without sleep for over 50 hours. When Connell slipped into the room, he found the two men puzzling over a drawing board.
What seems to be the trouble, Astro?
Asked Connell. Astro turned.
Not
startled,
much has changed, but I added booths.
said Astro.
We're having a hard time getting the correct amount of reactant power we need in a unit this small.
Maybe you're trying to make it too small, Astro.
I also made the sprinklers
This unit has
for
put
the
one
fire
to
fire sprinklers, you know.
when the reaction
I added a little fluid switch and some water catchers to where you can turn them on.
But whatever you do, keep working. Only a day and a few hours left.
Yeah, just little things, you know.
Keep them working, Mr. Shinny.
Reduced the number of prefabs on it so it's easier on people's computers.
I'll try, sir,
Said Astro, shaking his head.
but I won't guarantee it.
So, I mean,
Him off with a
hasn't
roar.
changed much. Just little things.
I don't want your guarantee. I want that unit. Now, build it.
Hour after hour, the cadets racked their brains for what seemed like impossible answers to an impossible task. Working until their eyes closed fast shut, they would lie down right where they were, power deck, control deck or radar bridge and sleep. But either way, still groggy, drink hot tea, eat cold sandwiches, and continue their struggle with time and astrophysics. One by one, the problems were solved and set aside for newer ones.
Harbor, I can't remember if the stream was working for you to see that.
All of their information was assembled and coordinated by Major Connell. More than once, Connell had found the clever minds of his cadets reaching for answers to questions he knew would have troubled the professors back at Space Academy. Connell, his eye on the clock, his sharp tongue lashing out when he thought detected unclear thinking, raced from one department to another while the incessant work continued. On the morning of the fourth day, he walked into the radar bridge where Roger and Alfie had been working steadily for 72 hours on an electronic fuse to trigger the reactant units.
There you
Still
are,
loading?
Said Roger.
The fuse is all yours, delivered 12 hours ahead of time.
Good work, Roger. You too, Alfie. Excellent,
said Connell, his eyes appraising the fuse.
That's nothing, Skipper,
said Roger with a smile.
Anyone could have done it with Alfie here to help. He's got a brain like a calculator.
Now, I want to see how smart you two really are,
said Connell.
Huh?
Asked Roger stupidly. Alfred slumped to the deck, holding his head in his hands.
I want a communications unit,
said Connell.
That can send
Still
out a
bugging out?
constant beam. The signal Space Academy can pick up to follow Junior in transit back to Earth.
In 12 hours?
Exploded Roger.
Impossible, Skipper.
Crap.
Cadet Manning!
Roared Connell.
I don't want your opinion! I asked for that unit!
But one day, sir. 12 hours.
Maybe if I stop and start.
I'm sorry. I'm so tired I can't see straight.
Alfie let out a low moan. Connell studied the two cadets. He
Still
was aware
down
that he'd
back.
already asked them to do the impossible, and they had done it, and they deserved to be let alone. But Major Connell wasn't himself unless he had given every ounce of energy he had left, or the energy left in those around him. He patted Roger on the shoulder and spoke softly.
Roger,
Oh, there we go.
did I ever tell you that
Can you see that?
I think you have one of the finest brains for electronics I've
Alright.
ever seen. And that Alfie is
So this is the whole overview of the harbor
physics.
Roger stammered.
that I made.
Why, thank you, sir.
Alfie looked up at Connell and then struggled to his feet.
You know, Roger,
He said haltingly.
if
A
we
friend
don't
gave me
have
the idea of
something out
a
here
truck
to
running
test,
into stuff.
The transmitter unit.
Roger cut him off.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. We could borrow some of the reaction mass that Astro got out of the Space Devil and use that as a power source.
Connell backed away from the two cadets and tiptoed onto the bridge. He smiled to himself.
The minicopter is no longer going to be on the ship here. At the end, it's going to be behind a red card, which is going to require you to do two things. Sorry. So you need to put in a fuse, and then you're going to have to run over to this tower,
We're finished, sir.
Said Tom, simply.
and you should have plenty of time. So you climb up, and then when the fuse is active, one of those is... Oh, that one's broken. So this one, it has a radio transmitter.
Tom's worked out the ratios and the amount of reactant fuel needed in each unit for escape tangent. The escape time
So you can push that little red button there. So that's the other piece of the puzzle. Or you can have an RF transmitter and figure out which one of these numbers is the code for the RF transmitter.
It was almost too much to believe.
So you have to put a fuse in, then it will activate the button here, and then you run down, come over to this building, come in, and then now this is going to be a red card, and you come in, there's the Benny, plus a bunch of loot. There's also 5 barrels of diesel hidden throughout the whole thing. Okay.
authority vested in me as senior
Be right
officer
back, too.
of the Solar Guard, I hereby recommend official commendation of well done to the above-mentioned spaceman, and that all honors pursuant to that commendation be officially bestowed on them. Signed, Connell, Nature, S.O.S.G.
He closed the book and wiped the corners of his eyes with the back of his hand. End of chapter 15. Chapter 16. Danger in Deep Space. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Danger in Deep Space by Kerry Rockwell. Narrated by Sam Holloway. Chapter 16.
Well, fellas,
Said Tom, stifling a yawn.
it looks like we did it. But I could use some more sleep. That 5 hours was just enough to get started on.
Yeah,
Agreed Roger, sourly.
but where does this Venusian lummox get off grabbing all the credit?
He looked at Astro.
If I hadn't built the fuses for your little firecrackers,
Firecrackers?
Jabbed Astro.
Why, you skinny space fake. If I hadn't built those nuclear reactors, you wouldn't have anything to set off.
Connell appeared in the small mess room of the Polaris, his hands full of papers and drawings.
When you've finished congratulating each other, I'd like to say a few things.
He snapped.
congratulate him,
Exclaimed Roger.
Skipper. His head's so thick that the noise on the power deck.
Okay, I'm back too.
Drums.
Just one more word, Manny,
Round Astro.
and I'll take a deep breath and blow you away.
One more word out of either of you!
Roared
Okay.
Connell.
I'll throw you both in the
Sounds good, but
Mason and Loring.
give you a nice little tour of what's to come.
Who's on prisoner watch today?
He asked. The four cadets and Mr. Shinney looked at each other, then at Roger.
I am, sir.
Roger
I'm glad that it
I had a
represents what it's supposed to be.
you would be.
said Connell.
Cadet Manning, one of the first things an officer of the Solar Guard learns is to care
Yeah,
for
thank
the
you. I had
nation's
a lot of help from a friend with it too.
before himself. Did you know that?
He's been helping me kind of fix up my
Yes, sir.
monuments
I was
that I
just
have.
going to.
Mumbled Roger.
Then go
Pretty
below
soon
and
we're
see
gonna
if the
overhaul
Mason and
Shartland.
Loring get their rations.
Yes, sir.
Said Roger. He got up and collected a tray of food.
All of you report to the control deck in 5 minutes for
And I'm
briefing.
thinking of selling some of these things on like CodeFling, you know.
How do you like that?
Said Astro.
We break our backs for the guy and we no sooner finish than he starts the old routine again.
That has nothing to do with it, Astro.
Said Tom.
Put yourself in his position. We've only got 1 or 2
I
things
mean,
to think about. He's responsible
I think like
for it all.
$10 or $15
I sailed with him
a piece,
35 years ago.
Said Jim.
depending on the size. Like the harbor, I would charge like 15.
Plug of tobacco.
His all spaceman from the top of his head.
Waffle House, maybe like 5.
I'm rather inclined to agree
$10,
with you,
I don't know.
Tom.
Said Alfie.
Leadership carries with it the greatest
And then
of
I can
all
sell the
burdens,
wells separate from the
responsibility for other
greenhouse.
people's lives. You, Corbin, as a control deck cadet, would do well to mark Major Connell's pattern of behavior.
I mean, like if you were a map maker, would you be like, damn, I want to use this?
That for your rocket buster like Connell,
Don't worry, Astro.
Tom said, laughing.
I don't think there'll be another
Alright,
Major Connell
cool.
in a million light years.
Shinny laughed silently.
That gives me
small
hope.
frame shaking slightly.
Say it again, Tommy. Not in the whole universe will there be another like old blast-off Connell.
On the deck below the mess room, Roger, balancing the tray carefully on one hand, opened the electronic lock of the brig and then stepped back quickly, levelling the Pirello ray gun.
Alright, Mason, Loring,
He yelled.
come and get it.
The door slid open and Lauren stuck
Oh,
his head
Jesus, get some
Only
sleep.
funny business,
out. Roger warned.
and I'll stiffen you so fast you won't
Yeah,
know
you've
what
been on quite a while.
About time you showed up.
Round Lauren.
What are you trying to do? Starve us to death?
That's not a bad idea.
Said Roger.
Alright, well, get some sleep. Have a
Roger
good night.
motioned him back inside the brig and slammed the door
Good
shut.
talking to you.
He locked it and leaned against the grill.
Better read it while you can.
He said,
Oh,
Don't
jeez.
save it so fancy on a prison asteroid.
You'll never get us on a prison asteroid.
whined Mason.
Don't kid yourself.
Said Roger.
As soon as we get the reactor unit set, we're going to send this hunk of copper back to Earth and then take you back. They'll bury you.
Who's going to do all that?
Snapped Loring.
A bunch of punk kids and a loudmouth out officer.
Yeah, it sounds like it's pretty much done. I just have to make the new map.
Connell's voice roared over the intercom.
You were ordered to report to the control deck in 5 minutes! You're already 1 minute late!
Probably not gonna start on that tonight. But if you're curious, message me and I can stream it for you, like this.
Rock it off, you pin-headed piece of space junk. Didn't
On
take
an
long to
island?
jump in your cheeks.
Connell roared again.
Blast your hide, Manning! Report!
Better raise shift, Manning.
Said Loring.
Might get another
Islands are contested for.
Roger turned away and raced to the control deck. He entered breathlessly and stood beside his unit mates while Connell eyed him.
May have to evict someone. Who knows?
Thank you, Cadet Manning.
Said Connell.
We appreciate your being here.
Yes, sir.
Roger.
All right,
Barked Connell.
you know your assignments. We'll take the jet boats as before and go out in pairs. Tom and myself, Astro and Roger.
Oh, Nax was saying you were worried about
Set up the reaction
some
charges.
people.
Points marked on
If you put it in team chat, no one can see it, but I'll see it.
Down on your own charts. Each team will take 3 of the reaction units. My team will set up at points 1, 2, and 3. Astro and Roger at 4, 5, and 6.
What is it? Echo?
7, 8, and
No
9.
one.
After you set up the charges, attach the triggers
Oh,
and
okay.
fuses and return to the ship. Watch your timing.
Nax had like just mentioned something
More than a year
the other night,
June.
like, hey, yeah,
Orbital
she's kind of
position again. How much time
on
do you
edge
have,
about some of these guys.
Tom glanced at the clock.
Exactly 2 hours,
I was
sir.
like, oh yeah, that's them. They shouldn't be an issue.
It shouldn't take more than an hour and a half to set up the units and get back to the ship to blast off.
As long as you don't mess with them.
Any questions?
There were no questions,
All right,
said the officer.
put on your space gear and move out.
Handling the lead-encased charges carefully, 6 spacemen loaded the jet boats and, one by one, blasted off from the Polaris to positions marked on the map. Working
Oh, okay.
rapidly, each of the teams of 2 moved from one position to another on the surface of the desolate satellite. Connell, referring constantly to his watch, counted the minutes as one by one the teams reported the installation of a reactor unit.
This is Shinny. Just finishing installing reaction charge 1 at point 7.
This is Manning. Just finished installing reaction charge at point 4.
One after the other, the teams reported. Connell, with Tom piloting the jet boat, finished setting up their units at points 1, 2, and 3, and headed back to the Polaris.
How much time, sir?
Asked Tom as he slowed the small craft for a landing.
Less than half an hour, Corbett.
Said Connell nervously.
I'd better check with Shinny and Alfie.
He called into the audio phone.
Major Connell to Shinny and Higgins. Come in, Shinny. Higgins.
Shinny here.
Came the reply.
We're just finishing up the last unit. Should be back in 5 minutes.
Make it snappy.
Said Connell.
Less than half an hour left.
We'll make it.
Snorted Shinny.
Coming in for a touchdown.
Said Tom.
Better strap in, sir.
Connell nodded. He laced several straps across his lap and chest, gripping the sides of the seat. Tom sent the jet boat in a swooping dive, cut the acceleration, and brought the small ship smoothly inside the huge airlock in the side of the Polaris.
I'd better get right up on the
All right,
control deck and
have a
start
good night.
warming up the circuit, sir.
Said Tom.
Good idea, Tom.
Said Connell.
I'll try and think of Manning and Astro.
Tom left the officer huddling over the communicator in the jet boat.
Major Connell